Introduction to the Creative Advantage Life Cycle: How to enhance your creativity throughout all stages of your life. Creativity is the most important asset we have to negotiate through this rapidly changing world. From the way we manage our work life and conduct business, to how we learn a new skill, model behaviours for our children, and shape the way we age to express our unique selves, the creative brain has no limits. By broadening the applicability of creativity and recognising how it can elevate us both personally and professionally, we can start to realise the enormous reach we can have as parents, leaders, educators, and in everyday life. We can establish the foundations of the creative advantage. As leaders, we can have more impact as we learn the skills of effective and creative leadership to enable us to manage the challenges faced by our workplace teams, organisations, and the society at large. As educators and parents, we're discovering the role creativity plays in development and learning, with educational psychologists identifying that creative process underpins classroom learning as well as critical informal learning, from speaking our first language to engaging in group play. And as adults, we can tap into positive peak experiences, the flow that contributes to happy, healthy, and fulfilling lives, as well as face everyday problems that require creative responses. So how can we nurture and take advantage of our own individual creative abilities if we're to solve the pressing problems facing our world? The answer to this is the objective of this program: to lay out the science behind the apparent mystery of creativity, to not only appreciate our creative potential, but to give us all the motivation and the tools to obtain a creative advantage in all aspects of life. The first online program in the Creative Advantage program series demonstrated that we're all born to be creative. It's a necessary and innate ability with an evolutionary basis that natural selection has favoured to enable us to mix things up to stay on top of what life can throw at us. Like any ability, while we have a certain capacity, we can learn and improve. We have also learnt that the neuroscience points to the growing understanding that while most of us may be born with more or less the same brain, our capacity to use it can be strengthened throughout our life by the way we strengthen our creative abilities. But ultimately, creativity is as much about what we do as it is about how we do it. The Creative Advantage Life Cycle Program series reveals how creativity leads to the powerhouse of innovation, helping us all to use these learnings successfully in both our personal and professional lives to influence organisational cultures and, more broadly, society. But creativity is also visible in those seemingly small decisions we make daily, and this little c everyday creativity can be influenced with the creative techniques outlined in this program series. It's curated from the latest research from the world's most renowned experts and thinkers in the fields of neuroscience, social science, education and psychology to provide an understanding and practical approach to successfully create an advantage where you work, live, play, and as you age. So let's start by defining what we mean by a creative life cycle. A life cycle is defined as the developmental stages that occur during an organism's lifetime. For us humans, this program highlights the major stages of the life cycle as pregnancy, infancy, the toddler years, childhood, puberty, older adolescence, adulthood, middle age, and the senior years. We know that with proper nutrition and exercise, we can ensure good health and mental well-being throughout our lifespan. But where does creativity fit into this? This program explores how we can utilise creativity to proactively enhance every aspect of our life, from the early years, schooling and further education, work life, as well as our health and well-being as we age. It also recognises that we can all be challenged during these life cycle periods. We can be juggling roles as parents, combined with demanding work life and the needs of aging parents, leaving us somewhat overwhelmed and impacting on our mental and physical well-being. This program understands the complexity of modern life and aims to help you tap into those practical, creative problem-solving approaches that support you across the crossroads that you'll meet in your lifespan. More about how this program is structured. The course is divided into 3 sections that you can purchase separately depending on what stage in your life cycle you're most interested in learning about. Of course, you can also undertake all 3 sections, and you'll find this introduction is repeated in each to ensure an overall understanding of the program's intent. So if you purchase all 3 sections, you might want to skip the introduction if you've already heard it. Each program includes a series of reflective activities to help you consider the questions to ask that drive the notion of creativity as a distinct advantage rather than just leaving it to chance. I encourage you to undertake these activities to ensure you get the most out of the course. They are included as downloadable PDFs. You'll also receive a series of introductory resources to review that summarise the first online program called The Creative Advantage: How to Develop Creative Strengths and Skills, Build Creative Routines, Learn Tools, and Rewire Your Brain-Body Connection. If you haven't undertaken this online course or read the book The Creative Advantage: How the Intersection of Science and Creativity Reveals Life's Ultimate Advantage, then these resources will help you to understand the important foundations these online programs are built upon. These concepts are mentioned in the program, so to ensure you understand these, you'll also receive a downloadable PDF that recaps the creative fundamentals, including a summary of the following. How do we define creativity? Are you a little or big C creative? What's going on in the creative brain? The whole brain at work? And can the brain change? It also includes an important model utilised throughout the program, known as the 4 essential creative elements. While the Creative Advantage draws on many studies, it highlights the important foundational work led by Harvard professor Teresa Amabile, whose work by her team over many years has had a profound impact on the way the topic is understood, particularly in the workplace culture. What we'll learn from their work is that there are 4 key elements to achieve creativity. 3 of these are internal to us, and we have the direct ability to enhance these. They are intrinsic motivation, our willingness to engage, our mindset, and the desire to work with challenges. Domain relevant skills, defined by subject area expertise to draw upon as we progress through a creative process. Creative skills and behaviours. While these may vary depending on our personality, they're all conducive to problem solving. The 4th element that exists outside the individual is our environment. The family, social environments, and our workplaces can have a profound influence, either positively or negatively, to affect creative expression. The elegance of this model that we'll refer to as the Creative Elements Model is that it's applicable across all aspects of our lives. Motivation can be influenced through the design of schools, jobs, and through following our curiosity. Domain expertise can be improved through the way we practice, and the creative process skills can be learnt. Increasing research into the work environment has led to more awareness of its association with organisational innovation. The advantage is when you have these elements all working in your favour, they can combine to give you a creative advantage. When supplemented by creative problem-solving tools, you can ensure a creative outcome every time. I encourage you to review these downloadable PDFs before you progress into the life cycle sections of this program. So now, go to the next video to learn how this program is structured. The Creative Advantage: Cultivating Creativity in the Workplace. This is one of a 3-set series that explores what our life could look like if we reframed the way we approach the significant milestones with a more creative, enhancing mindset. This program's focus is on how to pursue creativity in your workplace, to enhance your own individual skills and the organisation's ability to succeed through a focus on creativity and innovation. Try this little exercise. Google workplace creativity. At the time of writing this program, this search responded with over 68 million hits. Google workplace innovation, and this resulted in a staggering 228 million hits. As the field of creativity research has increased, the area of organisational creativity has especially expanded. As creativity is defined as both a process as well as an outcome, and can be undertaken by literally anyone, it makes sense that business interest and subsequent research would increase. Creativity is considered a research domain in its own right, with university business schools at Harvard and neuroscientists at Stanford dedicated to this topic. As you have enrolled in this course, an assumption is being made that you appreciate the benefits of creativity and are wishing to pursue this further in your workplace, either because you're convinced it will enhance your own individual skills and enable you to improve your expertise to achieve at work, or you accept that a workplace that encourages creativity, harnessing the creative abilities of a team, is more likely to facilitate ideas and solutions, enabling both you and the organisation to succeed. Given there are thousands of books, journals, websites and universities dedicated to providing advice on the value of creative and innovative organisations, this online program will focus on identifying what to look for in a creative organisation as a means for you to gain a professional creative advantage. Whether you're seeking to enhance your current role or seek out a new role, at the end of this program, you will understand more fully how to match the theory with the practice by identifying the indicators that show an organisation values creative approaches and why this is important in both supporting staff as well as bringing a unique product and service to the market. Understanding the important role intrinsic motivation plays in your response to creativity in the workplace and exploring your own attitude to this. And highlighting the transformational and guiding role managers can play to foster a more creative workplace environment. The program covers 1. Seeking out workplace creativity. This includes the VUCA world of work and applying the creative elements model. 2. How the work environment influences motivation. There are 4 reflective activities in this program. The first reflection is what work environment factors are important to support your intrinsic motivation. The next reflection, what do you consider important to support your intrinsic motivation? And assessing an organisation for creativity with the reflection, what should I look for in a future employer? 3. Managing creativity versus managing for creativity. This explores the question, what role does management play in fostering the creative process in the workplace? And from manager to transformational leader, with the reflection, are you managing for creativity? These reflective activities support you to apply this information to your own situation. These are presented in parts to help you build your own approach to identifying what environment factors are important to support your own intrinsic motivation, then exploring how you would apply this when seeking a new role. It also provides a reflective exercise for those of you already in managerial roles to assess to what degree you're managing for creativity, and if not, where you might focus to develop your own and your staff's creative competencies. So what's included in this program? A presentation video, a summary of the transcript from the video, 4 reflective activities, and a resource list for your own follow-up. So let's start cultivating creativity in the workplace. Seeking out workplace creativity. Let's commence with some information to pave the foundation for this online program. Note that additional reading resources are provided on this topic. Firstly, we'll revisit the dominant trends underway that necessitate a change in the way we build our skill sets and navigate the new economy. There are a number of additional resources to review to assist you with this section. The first is entitled Understanding What's Defining the World Today and comes from my book called The Creative Advantage: How the Intersection of Science and Creativity Reveals Life's Ultimate Advantage, published in 2021. You've also received an introductory resource that summarises the first online program called The Creative Advantage: How to Develop Creative Strengths and Skills, Build Creative Routines, Learn Tools and Rewire Your Brain-Body Connection. If you haven't undertaken this online course or read the book, then these resources will help you understand the important foundations these online programs are built upon. The VUCA world of work. As well as death and taxes, the other thing we can be certain of in life is change. VUCA is a managerial acronym to describe the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous nature of business. Its aim is to emphasise the volatile characteristics of instability and speed of change, the information gaps and unpredictability of the future leading to uncertainty, the overwhelming and complex nature of relationships and information, and the lack of clarity or the unknown unknowns leading to ambiguity. VUCA characterises the world of work, as for many of us, we will no longer have a lifelong career in one role, job, or even discipline, as it's no longer realistic because of the nature and pace of this change. We can already see this with the growth of contract work in a gig economy, leading to the need for adaptive and flexible work approaches. This changing environment is also asking workers to take greater responsibility for their employability through continuous learning via informal approaches, stretch work, networking, mentoring, and accumulating a portfolio of portable skills. Employers expect young people to act as entrepreneurs by taking ownership of their roles, working cooperatively, and actively adding value to an organisation. An example is seen with the hiring procedure of Google, the world's most highly ranked innovation company. According to their Director of Talent, they look for intellectual curiosity, a bias towards action, and a problem finder. They prize collaboration and the ability to recognise and learn from others with different kinds of expertise. Given the world of work is facing an ever-increasingly VUCA environment, what does this mean for creativity? Large corporations recognise that some problems can be solved by following what's been done before. But more often than not, particularly when the issue is something the organisation hasn't faced before, genuine creative thinking and innovation are needed to satisfy customers, shareholders and stakeholders. My own 2016 study focused on understanding organisational creativity in small to medium-sized enterprises, and concluded that while limited by resources, people and finances, small to medium-sized enterprises know that to stay competitive, creativity and innovation are vital if the sector is to grow and thrive. Creativity and innovation are no longer buzzwords for the more adventurous large corporations to pursue. Instead, there's a growing recognition that these approaches are fundamental to any proactive organisation. Organisational creativity is rapidly growing in importance, particularly as it's positively associated with the role that stimulating and supportive workplace environments play. But we're not just seeking out organisations that believe creativity sits in marketing, research, development, and definitely not in accounting. We're looking for the ones that know that creativity can benefit every function of the organisation, and this is represented in the culture, seen in the leadership behaviours, and even found in the ubiquitous mission statement. Applying the Creative Elements model to workplace creativity. This is a good time to revisit the Creative Elements model and remind you to read the additional resource provided that outlines the model with the 4 key elements. It will also help you to consider how the workplace can foster the internal and external environmental components. While 3 of these factors are internal, how might the workplace support their enhancement, and what role can the social or work environment have to influence creative expression? While this program draws on many studies, it highlights the important foundational work led by Harvard professor Teresa Amabile, whose work by her team over many years has had a profound effect on the way the topic has been understood, particularly in workplace culture. What we'll learn from their work is that there are 4 key elements to achieve creativity. 3 of these are internal to us, and we have the direct ability to enhance these. They are intrinsic motivation, our willingness to engage, our mindset, and desire to work with challenges. Domain relevant skills, defined by subject area expertise, to draw upon as we progress through a creative process. And creative process skills and behaviours. While these may vary depending on our personality, they're all conducive to problem solving. The 4th element that exists outside the individual is our environment. The family, social environments, and our workplaces can have a profound influence, either positively or negatively, to affect creative expression. Let's look at the model in relation to the workplace. Domain expertise encompasses everything that a person knows and can do in their broad domain. For example, a scientist working in a pharmaceutical company would have a basic talent for thinking scientifically, as well as technical skills in biochemistry, medicine, and biology. Their expertise could have been acquired and developed further through formal study, practical experience, interaction with other professionals or clients. Domain expertise is also about making connections, seeing relationships, and crossing the boundaries of subject domains. As designer Clement Mock in 2005 writes, the next 10 years will require people to think and work across boundaries into new zones that are totally different from their areas of expertise. They will not only have to cross those boundaries, but they will have to identify opportunities and make connections between them. Creative skills and behaviours look at how a person approaches creative thinking, problems, and their capacity to put existing ideas together into new combinations and connections. This depends to some extent on personality and how the person thinks and works. Returning to our scientist example, this could be displayed with how comfortable the person is challenging ideas with colleagues, their flexibility in seeking solutions from other disciplines, and overall perseverance in problem solving. From a workplace perspective, both expertise and creative thinking could be fostered with the addition of time and funds to attend scientific seminars and professional conferences, or training in areas like diagnostic thinking. Professor Amabile says of her own model that while expertise and creative thinking are clearly important, it's the 3rd factor of motivation that determines what people will actually do. Our scientist might have some outstanding educational qualifications and a great facility to generate new perspectives, to entrench problems. But unless they're motivated to act, their expertise and creative thinking will go untapped or be applied to something else. Professor Amabile's studies reinforce there are 2 types of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside a person, whether it be a carrot or a stick, and we can see it commonly used in the workplace. In our scientist example, This could be by using external motivation with something desirable, for example, a financial reward for success, or something painful, like a demotion for failure. While this reward-penalty approach doesn't necessarily stop someone from being creative, growing evidence is showing that it doesn't help either. Besides financial incentives, performance can also be rewarded by providing public recognition, such as through company-wide programs, or private recognition through manager and employee conversations. Research is showing that recognition can significantly improve the level of innovativeness in people's work output, as well as their perception of the culture of the organisation. When extrinsic and intrinsic motivation combine synergistically, they can enhance each other. For example, in the workplace, by combining staff reward and recognition for creative ideas through constructive feedback and clearly defined goals with their own internal motivation. When people are intrinsically motivated, they engage in their work for the sheer challenge, satisfaction and enjoyment of it, rather than by external factors or pressures. Their motivation, and thus behaviours, can be significantly more enduring than extrinsic motivation. Maintaining your own creativity in your work depends on maintaining your intrinsic motivation. So that means you should do what you love by finding work that matches with your expertise, your creative skills, and your strongest intrinsic motivations. You should also love what you do, and that's a matter of finding a work environment that will allow you to retain that intrinsic focus while supporting your exploration of new ideas. How the work environment influences motivation. The research clearly shows that the work environment has a significant effect on a person's level of intrinsic motivation, which in turn affects that person's creativity. Let's now undertake 3 reflective activities that aim to identify your preferences in regard to workplace culture and the intrinsic motivators that you, consciously or not, respond to. Author of The Myths of Creativity, David Burkus, believes that an organisation's work environment is the most important and hardest creative element to design for, as it can enhance or detract from creativity by influencing the other 3 internal components. He notes, the organisation's commitment to continuous improvement and learning has a direct effect on the ease with which individuals seek to grow their expertise. The amount of cross-functional work within an organisation affects whether individuals can benefit from the broader group expertise. Openness of top management to new ideas and availability of resources affects how often creative, relevant processes are undertaken. And the senior management's approach to continuous innovation, whether it's reinforced with actions and policies, all determine how staff express their creativity. Let's begin by exploring a concept known as the psychosocial environment. This refers to the atmosphere in your workplace, home or classroom, and whether it has a positive or negative impact on your feelings, attitudes and behaviours. Researcher Goran Iqbal has studied the relationship between this environment and creativity and came up with 10 dimensions that he predicted can influence the levels of creativity experienced. These 10 dimensions are challenge and meaningfulness, freedom and autonomy, idea support, trust and openness, dynamism and liveliness, playfulness, debate, conflict, risk-taking and idea time. Now pause the video and undertake the first activity. This activity aims to help you identify the work environments you experience now or have in the past, and whether this experience reflects an environment that promotes your creative thinking. It's called What Work Environment Factors Are Important to Support Your Intrinsic Motivation, Part 1, and is included as a PDF download. At the end of the activity, tally up your responses to assess your thoughts about the workplace approach. Undertaking this exercise helps you to determine whether you're being enabled to be creative and, as a manager, whether you're providing the conditions for your team to be safe in creativity. Pause the video. So, how did you go in Activity 1? Are you in an environment where failure is not just tolerated but celebrated? Or an atmosphere where ideas are debated to ensure the best idea can be progressed? Or where missed deadlines don't seize people with fear? If not, then it's unlikely you're in an environment that will enable you to be highly motivated and be your best creative self. So, given motivation is such an important factor in workplace creativity, let's next reflect on what are the intrinsic motivators you could need to be at your creative best. Undertake the next activity to help you identify the important factors that you need to support your intrinsic motivation in the workplace. Apply the following to your current role or consider how this awareness might change the way you think about your motivation. This activity is called What Do You Consider Important to Support Your Intrinsic Motivation? Part 2, and is included as a downloadable PDF. The activity asks you to consider the importance of these 5 key factors. At the end, consider how this awareness might change the way you think about your motivation. Does your role provide an intellectual challenge? Research that sought input from workers through interviews and surveys consistently points to a large proportion of people being motivated by the intellectual challenge of their role. This is particularly the case with roles with a research component. Challenge is defined as the perception that jobs and/or tasks are challenging, complex and interesting, yet at the same time not overtaxing or underwhelming. This links back to the concept of flow and being in a state where you're absorbed in the task. Finding roles that challenge you will help increase your time in flow. But this relies on having the skills to rise to the challenge, otherwise it will just result in increased anxiety. How much independence or autonomy do you need in your role? Researchers have found that creativity is dramatically enhanced when employees are given the freedom to decide how they do their jobs. Managers have an important role to play here to ensure they define clear goals, to ensure staff know what they're aiming for, and don't shift the goalposts along the way. Research also shows that when jobs are complex and demanding, that is, they're high on challenge, autonomy, and complexity, the employees are more likely to focus their attention and effort. This makes them more persistent and more likely to consider different alternatives, which should result in creative outcomes. Does the role enable pursuing your passions? Some people are simply more revolutionary in their thinking than others and are suited to more radical projects. These people need to be well matched to a project, giving them license to be independent. They should, in some part, set their own agendas through spending a percentage of time on projects of their own choosing. It's particularly important with creative and innovative projects that these are matched with people with the appropriate set of skills and have the resources that enable them to rise to the challenge. What type of management engagement do you appreciate? Managers can still make a difference, and a good leader can inspire creative work. A manager's engagement and attitude to a project can be the defining factor in individual and team creative responses. This points to a manager's role as an appreciative audience. It also reinforces that seemingly little things like public recognition can go a long way in maintaining motivation. Are you averse or embracing of failure? This catch cry of embracing failure is relevant for both managers and individuals. There's more acceptance in management. They should aim to create environments that decrease the fear associated with failure and reframe this as experimentation and learning. This is easier said than done, as the fear of failure can rise with the scale of the business. As managers and workers, can the history of failure be reframed to improve your creative problem solving, team learning, and organisational performance? Now pause the video, reflect further on these factors, and record your thoughts. Assessing an organisation for creativity. These two previous activities asked you to reflect on what you seek in a role, what motivates you, and to be clear about this rather than leave this to chance. This third reflection provides you with further prompts when seeking a new role, either as areas to research about the organisation or as possible questions to ask your prospective employer to be sure it's the right fit for you. In building a picture about the organisation, you'll get a better sense of the daily work environment and some of the micro processes at play that influence both the staff and the organisation's approach or tolerance for creativity. It's called What Should I Look For in a Future Employer, Part 3. It asks you to focus on 4 key factors that can influence your approach to creativity. These are the organisational structure, the degree to which diverse perspectives are embraced, how projects are managed, and how information is managed. By asking and/or researching these questions, you can determine how this additional information could influence the way you think about this organisation. So again, pause the video, reflect further on these factors, and record your thoughts. Managing creativity versus managing for creativity. What role does management play in fostering the creative process in the workplace? When it comes to the success of creative projects, management and supervision rate highly in the research. Professor Amabile refers to the power of ordinary practices, suggesting managers should pay attention to the details of their own everyday and seemingly mundane behaviours with their staff. It's in the context of culture that managers can take note of the accumulation of small, everyday thoughts and habits that generate and sustain culture. Managers can support their staff and get the best from teams by performing both task-oriented behaviours, that is, activities that provide clarity, resources and structure to staff, and relationship-oriented behaviours, including being supportive, empathetic and considerate of their feelings. The clear links between work environment and creativity fall neatly into 6 categories. For managers, these provide clear practical areas of focus when aiming to enhance creativity in the workplace. The 6 areas are challenge, freedom, resources, work group features, supervisory encouragement, and organisational support. Let's look at each. Challenge. The research suggests that of all the areas a manager can focus on to stimulate creativity, the most effective is to match people with the right role to enable them to make the best use of their expertise, creative skills, and intrinsic motivation. As we learnt with Flow, we're looking to engage staff in activities that have a balance between the difficulty of the task and the right degree of challenge with a person's abilities. The amount of stretch is important, as too easy leaves a person bored and too hard leaves them frustrated and threatened by the loss of control. Managers may also fall into the trap of giving jobs to whoever is available at the time due to the urgency of the task. Freedom. We know that autonomy figures highly in staff satisfaction, so ensuring the goals are clear and remain as stable as possible gives people freedom in how they approach their work. This will feed both their intrinsic motivation as well as their sense of ownership. But be careful if the team has not been given a lot of freedom in the past, as people need to experience autonomy and gain confidence before they start to show a significant increase in their creativity. Resources. The two main resources managers have are time and money. So deciding how much of each to give staff, a team or the project is an important call. Some organisations still use fake deadlines or impossibly tight ones to spur creativity. Although time pressures may drive people to work, it more commonly doesn't enable them to think creatively. While research shows when staff are under time pressure, it can still yield some creativity, tight deadlines didn't enable collaboration and can lead people to feel they're on a treadmill. Low time pressure doesn't necessarily foster creative thinking either, but it can if people can do so when encouraged to learn, play with ideas and develop something truly new. The trick is to use unavoidable constraints to help build a better end product by using the boundaries to help find a solution. Constraints can provide a starting point to the problem to be solved, aiding our ability to generate and shape novel ideas. The most creative people in organisations embrace constraints and focus their attention on coming up with solutions that work inside a set of limitations. A lack of resources may not be the true constraint, just a lack of resourcefulness. When time pressure can't be avoided, managers should focus on protecting staff from interruptions, distractions, and unrelated work demands. The pressure can be softened by getting into the mindset of being on a mission, sharing a sense that the work is vital and the urgency is legitimate. Driving innovative cultures also means allocating resources to unstructured staff time, enabling them to work on passion projects or incubate ideas of benefit to the organisation. These initiatives work best when staff are also supported with skills to innovate and training in topics like design and agile thinking. These organisations also allocate staff with coaching roles to facilitate staff progress towards their goals and delivery of the business outcomes. Work group features. Building teams that come up with creative ideas means paying attention to the design of those teams. We know that mutually supportive and diverse teams can combine in exciting ways, where ideas emerge ideally in constructive conflict that comes from divergent minds. While recognising that managers can find this uneasy, truly creative conflict requires a diverse array of personalities, backgrounds, and thinking styles and attitudes. The trap is putting together a homogeneous team that may work well, but is at risk of agreeing on solutions too quickly. This acts as an echo chamber, where the team is not challenging each other and not using their expertise and creative skills to get to an innovative result. Author David Burkus refers to the cohesion myth, popularised by images of open-plan offices, relaxed dress codes, free food, pool tables, and filled with smiling people. The myth is based on the notion that creative ideas come from teams that can suspend all criticism to focus just on cohesion. The focus on getting along all the time can come with self-censoring and reducing the ability to critique. This has been confused with the value gained from debate, challenge, and structured conflict. The research confirms that testing and strengthening the value of ideas comes with conflict, evaluation, and confrontation, brought about by expressing and debating differing viewpoints and driving teams to an overall more creative output. Research also shows that teams that demonstrate job-relevant diversity are typically cross-functional and have a good spread of different educational backgrounds and expertise. Consider also the preferences staff display in working together, what's known as cognitive differences. These are the varying approaches to perceiving and assimilating data, making decisions, solving problems, and relating to others. They can reveal themselves in our work styles and decision-making activities. Play is one way to create positive interactions between team members. This doesn't mean wasting time on frivolous activities, but instead creating a playful environment where experimentation and levity are encouraged. The approach is supported by neuroscience research that demonstrates that staff are more likely to solve complex problems when they're in a positive mood. Supervisory encouragement. The research clearly shows the connection between encouragement and intrinsic motivation, particularly in sustaining creativity. This means being alert to the motivational rewards at play, both intrinsic and extrinsic, acknowledging innovative efforts, meeting new ideas with an open mind, and responding to them in a timely manner. Given that not every idea is worth pursuing, it also means transparent organisation and management approaches to accept or cull ideas. Managers can also serve as role models, persevering through tough problems, displaying creative problem finding and solving techniques, as well as encouraging communication and collaboration. Consider also the nature of how feedback is given. Is it frequent or infrequent? Infrequent feedback refers to an annual performance review, usually linked to a salary or a bonus. Research now suggests that infrequent feedback can lead to greater stress for employees and diminishes creativity. Staff will do what is safe, what they know will work, and avoid taking risks for fear of a negative review. The researcher notes that by providing more regular feedback, employees have an opportunity to modify behaviours before deep-seated patterns and expectations are set. It makes sense that if you want staff to be creative, you need to design an environment where incentives are aligned to goals. Organisational support. Consider what measures and messages are in place that encourage creativity across the organisation. Supportive organisations consistently appreciate, reward and recognise creative efforts. They're also organisations that value information sharing and collaboration, as they recognise the exchange of ideas and data builds collective knowledge, exposes staff to dynamic creative thinking, and are overall a more playful and fun place to be. Managers who see innovation as part of their role actively seek out different viewpoints, getting out of the office, testing prototypes, asking questions and seeking feedback through a diverse range of networks. Leaders at innovative companies spend 50% more time on discovery activities than their counterparts at non-innovative organisations, and make connections between seemingly disparate bits of information. The next reflective activity is designed for those of you who are already managers. It's a self-evaluation exercise to assess to what degree you're managing for creativity, and if not, where you might focus to develop your own and staff creative competencies. It's called Are You Managing for Creativity and is attached as a downloadable PDF. Pause the video, reflect on the questions highlighted in the 6 factors, and record your thoughts. From manager to transformational leader. Let's start by exploring diversity in practice. Complexity scientist Scott Page wrote in his book The Difference that in many problem-solving contexts, diversity provided more value than expertise. He wrote, "If you already have 4 brilliant statisticians working on a policy problem, even a mediocre sociologist or economist may add more value to your team than another brilliant statistician." The logic is that when dealing with complicated problems, even smart people can get stuck. So adding a new and different perspective can bring a fresh view or skill. This online program series emphasises the value of diversity, of views, people, and places as a means to introduce opportunities for creativity. While its importance can't be underestimated, it also recognises that diversity can be challenging. While the evidence is overwhelming that cognitive diversity within teams is more effective in the longer term, this may not be how it seems to those within the teams. Diverse teams work harder, possibly because they fear their views will be challenged by someone who's not like-minded. Homogeneous teams, while they may feel more comfortable, may become complacent. So, when faced with more cohesion versus more openness, managers are tempted to go with cohesion. Author of Messy, How to Be Creative and Resilient in a Tidy-Minded World, Tim Harford, provides 4 lessons to help managers get out of their comfort zones to increase a team's creative capacity. He says managers need to recognise our tendency to spend more time with people who look and sound like us. So, look for opportunities to find people, places and situations to engage in new kinds of interactions. Value people who connect together in disparate teams as they play a bridging role and are able to knit together teams to build trust. Remind yourself that tension can bring benefits that, if managed, can bring about creative sparks. Believe that the ultimate goal of collaboration is something worth achieving and worth the messy awkwardness that may result. From manager to transformational leader. In the VUCA world, is it enough to just manage, or is there more we can aim for? Recognising the complex social, environmental and economic problems our world is faced with. These modern problems, where past experience may not be sufficient, require more novel and, yes, creative ways of approaching them. Global competition, new production techniques and rapid technological change have placed a premium on creativity and innovation. These are often high-risk, high-reward environments where managers are required to balance both competing organisational agendas with creative, innovative strategies. The leadership of creative efforts can be complicated as the leader is required to shape a creative idea into a viable, innovative product or service. There's a strong case put forward by both business leaders and researchers that creativity is a core competency skill. To lead both people and an organisation requires expertise, direct and indirect influence tactics, and creative problem-solving abilities. Researcher Professor Michael Mumford says a leader's performance within an organisation is based on the degree to which they can successfully facilitate others towards meaningful goals, as well as the ability to circumvent and resolve issues that impede progress. Leadership performance is directly related to an individual's capacity to use their creative problem-solving skills to resolve complex social problems. Transformational leadership is clearly much more than being a spectator or leaving creativity to chance. It's a form of leadership at the highest level of development, being self-aware of areas you need to improve and mastery in the use of tools and the process of creativity. To sum up, there's no doubt that effective leadership is critical to the success of organisation creative and innovative efforts. Having teams of highly creative people is of little use without the leadership to guide and mobilise them. Whether it's a management or leadership role, individuals in these positions must recognise that creativity and creative problem-solving are 21st century leadership skills. The key to making change stick are knowledge and consistency, having a strong understanding of the creative tools and techniques to facilitate progress, and using the creative process whenever solving a problem. Bonus: Manager's Guide to Enhance Creativity. What types of behaviours does a manager display who's interested in getting the best creative expertise from individuals, the best cohesiveness from their team, and the best outcome for their organisation? To answer this, check out the download guide that aims to remind managers What's important to help enhance creativity in the workplace? Understanding what's defining the world today. Let's explore the dominant trends underway that necessitate a change in the way we live, work, and create. While some of these we'll all experience over a lifetime, others are more applicable to the world young people are entering. They all point to the need to develop creative skill sets to assist to navigate the new economy. Renowned social scientist Herbert Simon once said, "What information consumes is rather obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. Hence, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention." Information overload and attention deficit. Creativity is applicable across all industries, and while there's enormous diversity across professions, there is one constant. All professions say they have less time to think deeply about problems. So why is this? The 21st century has experienced an explosion in the speed and volume of information consumed, as well as the methods we access this information. Chris Lewis is an author and media specialist who believes we've come to rely on the 24/7 multi-channel communication. But this could also be eroding our ability to think clearly, expansively, and creatively. With so many ways to access information, we're feeling busier, but this hasn't necessarily translated to higher productivity. With these interruptions to our thinking, this information overload is changing behaviours and limiting our ability to manage our attention. It's the scale of the overload, with email the most pervasive, with figures of 5.2 billion worldwide email accounts in 2018. Then add social media, messaging apps, and an increase in advertising exposure, and a typical adult's daily media consumption has almost doubled in recent years. This overwhelming amount of information also leads to stress, narrowing our attention to more analytical and short-term thinking. To cope, we filter and narrow our information sources, and this forces us to quickly summarise information to determine if something is good, bad, or relevant. Chris Lewis believes that this is changing behaviours as more qualitative information can be missed in favour of reductionist, analytical, and quantitative thinking, meaning we have become less focused on the longer-term impacts of our decisions. It's not just adults. Today's children are also impacted by this new reality. With fewer hours spent with face-to-face interaction and more with screens, this can impact children's ability to read non-verbal signs as well as their ability for conversation. University students are also changing their reading habits. A recent US report points to the decline across all age groups over the past 20 years, particularly in literary reading like novels, poetry, and short stories. This is important because reading books requires a degree of active attention and engagement. By contrast, most electronic media make fewer demands and require no more than passive participation. Interactive video games and the internet foster shorter attention spans and accelerated gratification. Students are less used to concentrating for long periods of time and working through the nuances of an argument that reading books builds. This has implications for anyone in the workforce because so much of what we do is screen-driven, and young people particularly will have shorter attention spans and may lose the impetus to stay engaged. So what's the impact on our ability to be creative? Short-term distraction is a hindrance to long-term sustained creative thinking. Imagine the brain bombarded by millions of bits of information. It copes by discarding information to enable it to focus on what's necessary at that moment. The information is registered or possibly stored as a memory, ready to direct to future responses. This selective attention is a cognitive process where the brain attends to a small number of sensory inputs, while filtering out what it deems unnecessary distractions. The brain's selective attention works out what is and isn't important via the limbic system's thalamus. This manages the brain's filtering system, acting like a road traffic officer, directing sensory information to the most appropriate part of the brain. We choose where we place our attention. When we stop, our thoughts have a chance to come to the surface and to the attention of the conscious brain to move from distracted to an absorbed state. The absorbed focus and the ability to control our attention is fundamental to optimal performance. Plus, it feels good, and pleasure is the emotional marker for flow. While the longer-term implications are yet to be realised, we all need to become more selective about the information we consume. Education and management practices are evolving, but not fast enough to cope with the changes we're experiencing. Now more than ever, we need to ensure we spend time and energy cultivating creativity skills,
I'm Maria
creating environments and
I'm the
habits
founder
that
and
enable us
facilitator
to
of the
incubate
Creative
ideas.
Catalyst, providing a range of evidence-based approaches that build creative competencies, skill sets, and collaborative workplace cultures. I'm a strong advocate for promoting creativity in our workplaces, as well as in our approach to education, parenting, and well-being. The Creative Advantage books and online programs highlight how we can create the conditions for creativity to enhance both our brain health and our capacity to be creative. Creativity is not just about being able to paint a picture or play music or solve a complex scientific problem. It's about coming up with something new and valuable, and it's something we can all do. So you might be wondering how you display your creativity. Try this. Reflect on the last problem you tried to solve, either at home, on the way to work, with your children, anything. Do any of these match the thinking you went through? Did you get excited with the first idea you had and you wanted to jump straight to a solution? You didn't want to waste any time thinking about other ideas. Or was it more about making sure you were clear about the problem? You wanted to collect all the facts before making a decision. Maybe you had heaps of ways of solving it and those ideas just kept coming. Or you needed more time to mull over the various options that you had thought about. Maybe you were just over it and you wanted the solution yesterday. We humans are naturally problem solvers. We solve new problems every day by tapping into our creativity. And while we all have our own unique way of doing this, research has shown that every time you take on a complex problem that needs a solution, there are 4 distinct thinking approaches that you can move through. First, you clarify the challenge and you identify the right problem to solve. Then you generate ideas and connections. You develop a workable solution, and then you implement towards action. This is known as the universal creative problem-solving process. To come up with the best possible solution, you need all 4 types of thinking, but many of us don't. In fact, the research shows that more than 80% of us have a preference in some of these thinking styles over others. So why is this important? Think about the last brainstorm session you had at work. Were there people in the room who had heaps of ideas? Some of the ideas were crazy and unworkable. Other people may have wanted to jump straight to the end to get to a solution, while someone else said, hold on, I need more details before I can agree, and they asked a lot more questions. Did the session end in a less than satisfactory way? The different thinking preferences we have can often cause stress, misunderstanding, and communication breakdowns. Our work colleagues, partners, friends are often not even aware of the thinking preferences they display. But an important thing to note is that our thinking preference is not the same as our thinking ability. We all have the ability to do all 4 types of thinking. But if you're like most people, you will have a favourite style of thinking, a preference that you're more comfortable with. That's where the Foresight Creative Thinking Profile comes into play. This very clever tool is a research-based measure of creative thinking that assesses how you're creative and what your creative thinking preferences are. The goal is not to change your profile, but to understand it, and in doing so, help you understand others, and to be able to collaborate better. You can also learn ways to help you through the steps that you don't have a preference in. So have I piqued your interest? The Creative Thinking Profile is based on 65 years of research into creative problem solving. The assessment measures where your energy lights up in a problem-solving process and where it wanes. Once you understand your own problem-solving style, you can anticipate where you're likely to get stuck and how you can be more effective working alone or in a group. Especially when teams are struggling to collaborate remotely, these insights build bridges, foster collaboration, reduce conflict, and lead to better, more innovative solutions. The ability to understand and leverage thinking styles is the first step towards achieving consistent breakthrough results. As a special bonus to participants of any of the Creative Advantage online programs, you'll receive a 10% discount on the Foresight Creative Thinking profile. This includes the 10-minute assessment undertaken online and a guided feedback session. You'll also receive an interpretive guide, a personalised profile slideshow, and if undertaken as part of a team profile, you'll also receive a collaboration profile. This tool is great for teams as it helps to find ways to understand and collaborate based on a better understanding of the preferences in the creative problem-solving process. To find out more about undertaking the Foresight Creative Thinking profile and ways to enhance your creativity and learn how to improve your collaborative team approaches, then check out the website www.thecreativecatalyst.com.au. And to receive the discount offer, use the code TCA Foresight 10.